we were just having a lovely conversation between Ken and Pamela and I. And if you notice, if you see Pamela Fullerton, she is the lovely person standing in a horse barn. We are doing this conversation. Believe it or not, it couldn't get any better. From my office, this is my closet office, and from Pamela, who is in a horse barn near Wausau. So I'm going to just let everybody join us, and I see very familiar faces. Thank you so much. This is just such a thrill to be able to host this. I'm so grateful to WWA for allowing me to have this Wispresso Cafe show. It began through a comment from our wonderful Lori Shear, and she said, hey, let's do a monthly show on a Saturday morning, open to everybody, and talk about books and writing. So here we are. So anyway, I would like to welcome Pamela Fullerton today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm so delighted to be here. Even though in about 2 hours, I'm going to be giving my own presentation, but that's part of writing too, is that occasionally you have to do that kind of thing. So
exactly.
Here I am in the barn where I'm going to do my presentation. So
that's so great. But so let me just say a little bit about the cafe. It's produced by the Wisconsin Writers Association. It encourages, educates, celebrates, and promotes writers through its programs and services. We provide resources and community building opportunities to help writers achieve their literary goals. And today's question is, who has turned on their heat? Are you sitting there? Okay, 2 of us, 3. Okay. You know, some of us are sitting there still shivering while we write. You know,
I'm in my winter barn coat in case
yeah,
you haven't
you're in your winter
noticed.
barn coat. So, and I also want to thank Ken. Ken is, you know, the person behind the logo there with Wisconsin Writers. We cannot do this without Ken. Thank you very, very much. Ken has written several books, and he's also the host of the podcast Midwest Writers Room. And another thing, a couple things as we move along here. I'll take your questions as they come through. And please post your links to your books, to your website in the chat so everybody can see who you are. And if they want to know more about you, they can find you. So that's, I will hope you do that. That's what we're here for, is to celebrate and share news about writing. One thing I do want to mention also, speaking of books and writing and WWA, we've got a marketing class coming up November 5th, 7 o'clock. So register for that if you want to know more about book marketing. That is only for members. So join if you'd like, if you're not already a member. But please check out that marketing class because it's very, very popular. That is November 5th, 7 o'clock. So anyway, let me introduce our wonderful guest. She has a new book out from WWA Press, Tales of a Preacher's Brood. And Pamela, I'm going to read your lengthy, wonderful bio. You are a prize-winning...
Embarrass me now.
Okay. Prize-winning author, storyteller, journalist, and documentarian whose evocative writing draws deeply from her roots in the heart of Wisconsin. She writes about those things that allow human beings the great privilege of laughter or tears. She was born and raised as one of 16 siblings in a family of preacher's kids. That's what this book is about, Tales of a Preacher's Brood. And she began her academic journey at UW-Madison at the age of 15, later earning a law degree. She is a multiple Jade Ring Contest winner, and her short stories are in publications such as Wisconsin People and Ideas, Modern Arabian Horse, and Creative Wisconsin. She is the author of Red Road Redemption, Country Tales from the Heart of Wisconsin, produced by WWA Press, a poignant blend of memoir and fiction, and her latest memoir, Tales of a Preacher's Brood, chronicles her family's unconventional odyssey, and she also co-produced a documentary Honor in the Air about her brother, Vietnam War veteran Captain Scott Alwyn, providing a new glimpse into the lives of the generation who fought that unpopular war for all the right and gallant reasons. Thank you, Pamela, for joining us.
Well, I'm so delighted to be here.
So you also have a podcast produced that was our second one for the Midwest Writers Room. So if anybody wants to learn more about Pamela, listen to that podcast. Pamela Fullerton, Midwest Writers Room. You just Google it and it'll come up, or you can scroll on the website and find it. So it's a wonderful listen to get a background on her first book. But now we're going to talk a little bit about your second.
Okay.
So tell me a little. First of all, your claim that you can find stories everywhere and everyone should tap into the storyteller within.
I think that is a proverb by which I have lived my entire life. there are stories everywhere. You cannot look at a tree without wondering how it got to be where it is. You can't look at another person's face and the lines and the smile wrinkles and the hair that's missing or bedraggled, or and without wondering what has happened to create the person you're seeing at that exact moment. I mean, and looking at you with your closet with the zebra and wondering what kind of influences created that scene in which you've placed yourself. But stories occur for 1,001 reasons. But just the other day, I had a conversation with one of my sisters, and she said something about, I remember the ugliest can I ever saw. And I immediately knew what she was talking about and sat down and wrote a story about this one single solitary can, ugly can of rutabaga that was sitting on the cupboard shelf. And it was the last can on the shelf, and she had to make lunch out of it. And I mean, you can find a story anywhere. The people walking through here.
Right.
I'm seeing some very interesting faces. People are having interesting and urgent conversations with one another or on their phones, and you wonder what's going on in their lives, because everything we do treats with the human condition, all of the tragedy, all of the triumphs, all the love, all the losses, the change, the growth, the loss. So.
And there's nothing like animals to bring out, I think, somebody's emotional, creative side. You know, whether it's a horse or a dog or a cat.
No, I agree with you. I think sometimes I sit down at my computer and I'm just kind of lost. But big old Magnus, who is a deaf 14-year-old, well, looks like a doggo Argentino or a pit bull or somebody, and he's totally deaf, and he'll be lying curled up in his little bed at my feet, and he'll raise his head and he'll look at me with those golden eyes of his, and it sparks something. The fact that you have that companionship in your life. I walk out and I feed the horses morning and night, and some days it's the only thing that gets me out of bed. I mean, if everybody knows that there are days when you just do not want to do it, but boy, knowing that those animals are out there waiting for me and that they count on me to take care of them and act as their steward, it is an extraordinary responsibility, but it's an extraordinary joy too, to have them in my life. So.
And I just saw that Chris had a cat cameo right over his shoulder, as though we queued it up on time. We had a stunt cat set up on time for this.
That's so cool.
So anyway, everybody check out the chat, and people are posting, you know, their links and what they're doing. Congrats to everybody. We've got new books, A Necessary Death. We've got, oh yes, Lisa Lickel is with us, her editor. Thank you, Lisa, for joining.
Hi, Lisa.
You have so check out that podcast. And also I see Ken noted you're going to be back on the Midwest Writers Room for a chapter break episode 2, reading from your book. So just check that out. So thank you everybody who's posting in the chat. It's really nice to see all that. And one other question. Your secret sauce, you mentioned, and I'm still on the aspect of inspiration for storytelling and how people can tap into that, because you seem to be a natural storyteller and you definitely talk about it in both books. So what is your secret sauce for writing, and how does that inspiration get you to the page?
I think probably one of the things that is most inspirational for me is being out in nature. And the way that I most often access nature, to be perfectly honest with you, is from the back of a horse. And so I will take one of the horses and we will not do a training run. We won't be going somewhere on purpose. We'll just wander through the woods. And every once in a while, as they're picking their way between saplings and between burdocks, you tell them, watch your feet, you know, because they're going to hit a stone or take a drop off or something. But being able to ride in that cathedral of greenness and light and smell. And every time a horse puts down their foot, it releases the scent of all of that leaf litter below you and the crackle of a twig underneath their feet, or having a grouse fly up from the snow between their legs, or a fox pass by, or come upon wolf prints, or see a bear, which unfortunately is not a good thing on a horse because horses hate bears. But it gives your mind the opportunity to slow down just a little bit and catch that fleeting thought that otherwise you would never have grasped. You know, who was here before us? Who worked this land? Who cut these trees? What were they doing with them? You know, what animals live here? What do I know about them? What don't I know about them that I should know about them? I mean, I wrote a story about a leaf one time. I mean, because you walk through you're on this horse and you're walking through the woods, and sometimes they pick the same paths. And seriously, I watched the leaves emerging in the spring, and I watched them later on falling in the fall, in the autumn. And I thought, what about the life of that leaf? And I actually wrote a story about that. So you can find inspiration everywhere. It doesn't have to be some major drama, just something you want to share. And
so Lisa, your editor, she made a comment, Pamela lives in sensory imagery, which is totally true. You live in that. What advice can you give to writers who want to get into that place in their mind, that sensory imagery?
don't just observe, touch, feel, smell, stroke. I mean, it is the world. Feel that light breeze on your face. It isn't just an annoyance. It is a caress. The leaves aren't just green or gold with filtered light. They feel like velvet if you touch them. They turn over to greet the rain. I mean, it truly, truly, try and immerse yourself in just one thing. I'm standing next to a stall, and it's made out of knotty pine. And I mean, I can run my hand across the grain of it and feel the knots that are there and know that that is where some branch once was. And the color varies from board to board. You can immerse yourself in just about anything. How about this barn jacket I have on, this old canvas Carhartt, with all of its zippers and its buckles and its capacious pockets. Put your hand in, and as you put your hand in, you're rubbing against the inside of the canvas that it's made of. Everything is there for us to see and feel and smell, but it is also there to wrap ourselves in.
Right, and wrap the reader in. And also, before we began, Pamela said, if I scratch the back of my neck, it's because hay was dropped down while I was feeding. So you can write about your itchy neck and the hay.
Actually, I would write about the fact that I was breaking up a large square bale, which is a bale which is 3 feet by 3 feet by 8 feet. And you break off the sections and feed them one by one. And I got a section that must have weighed about 100 pounds. And I was going to have to lift it over my head and into the feeder. And that was darn hard to do. And it kept showering hay down on top of me. But the horse was happy once I got it in there. So.
And they're always so patient when they're waiting to be fed, aren't they?
Yeah, H is a good boy.
So do you have a process that you can give to the listeners, viewers? Do you have a writing process? Are you there at your desk a certain time every day? What kind of tips can you give in that sense?
First of all, I'm not there every day, because if I don't have a phrase or an image or a sentence in my head, I might as well not bother, because I won't do anything. And I'll just sit there. Although occasionally, if I sit there, it's good practice because I revise something else. But if I do have it, I'll let it stew around in my head for maybe a few hours, maybe a few days, but pretty soon it wants to come out. And then I'll sit down and I will write everything that I feel or know about this particular issue or this story. And I will then let it alone for a day or two. And then I'll go back to it and start to rework it and rewrite it and give it the arc that I need for it to have. And the conclusion, which I may or may not know when I first started. But by that time, it's probably coming out on the paper itself. So,
do you have favorite writing books that you can recommend?
Well, the only one that I actually used or used to use was Stephen King's On Writing. But I pick up books all the time and read them and get little hints here and there, but nothing really other than that that I would talk about at length.
So you say that you sometimes don't know the ending. So would you call yourself a pantser or a plotter, or where do you fit in the?
I'm a combination of both. I'm a hybrid.
Okay.
Because sometimes, like the story about the last can, I knew where it ended up too when I started to write it. But the one I wrote before that, which was called Silken Ears, I had no idea where it was going. And but the minute I started to write, I could see the trajectory in front of me. And I actually did not like it. And I mean that in the sense that it was very raw and very tragic. But regardless, that was the trajectory and that was where it went. And so I will do both. Sometimes I know exactly where I'm going and how I want for it to end. The novel that I'm writing right now, I know where it's going. I know how it's going to end. But getting there is going to be the incredibly difficult part.
Speaking of raw and tragic, because, I write stories for readers to laugh and escape. So they have conflict in them, but I know at the end it's going to be, there's a redemption, right? So, you're writing stories short, there's one in particular regarding your lovely, wonderful brother. How do you write raw and tragic and then bring yourself back around to some kind of balance or order? Because going through that emotionally as an author is difficult.
But it's who we are as humans, isn't it? I mean, there is not one of us listening to this podcast, there's not one of us alive who hasn't been seized by the absolute tragedy of how transient some things are in our life, whether it's other people or joy or success. They can all disappear in a heartbeat. And you have to deal with that. And I think we learn by suffering and we gain strength by making it through the kinds of events that all humans are heir to. And
So
it doesn't mean you can't laugh the next day. I mean, it may be gallows humor even, but you do learn how to laugh again.
Well, I wanted to ask you about your brother, Scott. He is buried in a small rural cemetery next to a tiny red brick country church. And you visit, and I'm reading from your book here. This is your brother who was, I'll let you tell the story, but you talk about your father visiting the grave too, and how, just how your family moved through this tragedy. So I'll just let you tell the story of your brother and how you wrote about it in the book.
Well, there were a number of stories about Scott in the book, and it's probably because he was my next eldest brother. And when I was growing up, he was my knight errant and my protector. And when they would call me Pam the Ham, in sixth grade, he'd beat them up for me, which of course amused and delighted me no end. But Scott was another preacher's kid. And my dad sent him to Concordia Seminary Prep to turn him into a minister. Well, that wasn't going to work. So Scott came home and went to finished high school here and got a nomination to the Air Force Academy. and was just way too independent for that kind of regimentation, and came home saying, I don't know what coming out of the shower with a drop of water on your back has, and getting demerits for it, has to do with turning out great leaders and great pilots. So he came back to Wisconsin and joined the Army, and they made him a helicopter pilot. And he wanted to stay in, he wanted to do med flights, or what they used to call the dust offs in Vietnam. But everybody starts out in the slicks, which are the troop transports, and the ones that go in, get the wounded and bring them out, and take in supplies and things like that. And he was really an extraordinary pilot. Within a couple of months of being there, he had designed a new maneuver called an auto rotation maneuver, which if you lost your tail rotor or engine in a helicopter prior to that time, you essentially just fell out of the sky like a stone and burst into flames. And he created a maneuver which allowed you to actually land the aircraft, and not nicely, not beautifully, and not gracefully, but certainly you could at least walk away from what the wreck was. And and as a result of that, they invited him to join the guns, which were the hotshot pilots, right? And he refused. Now, you only got asked one time to join the guns, and if you refused, I mean, that was you were on their blacklist from there. No, they kept asking him, but and finally he did. He went and joined the guns, but he became one of, if not the most decorated helicopter pilot in the Vietnam War. And to this day, he holds the record for combat air medals. He got one air medal for every 25 hours of combat flight time in Vietnam. And his DD-214 shows 136 air medals. His battalion records show over 207, which is, either one is by far the record. He had a Silver Star, 2 Distinguished Flying Crosses, something like 7 or 8 Bronze Stars, and 4 Purple Hearts. And I mean, it just goes on and on. He had the highest price on his head of any flyer in Vietnam. Hanoi Hannah, who was the equivalent of Tokyo Rose, had a bounty on his head of 100,000 piastres, whatever the heck that is. So, but he met a woman over there and married her and brought her home, and they had 2 wonderful children. And every time he'd come home, he'd go back to the university and get more credits, and graduated with his degree in political science. But just as the war ended, he resigned his commission because he was so upset about the way we were leaving Vietnam. But he stayed in the Army as a chief warrant officer, as a pilot, and was on his way from Fort Benning to the War College in Washington, D.C., because they had invited him probably to talk about being an instructor there or something. And he'd gotten a call from Proxmire's office saying, we'd like to talk to you about a congressional seat that's going to come open. And I talked to him that afternoon, and he said he wasn't sure he could think about something like that because there was so much deal making in Washington. His words to me were, I don't know if you can get into politics and retain any honor. You know, it seems to me to be all about deal making and not about the people, which is certainly a foreboding of some things in life. But anyway, I mean, he left, and a mechanic who had been drinking all day told his wife he was going to go out and commit suicide and take somebody else with him, and he took Scott in a blinding rainstorm. So we lost him, and it really almost did destroy my parents, who had probably with really incredibly poor foresight put so much faith and trust into the fact that he would continue to be a leader in the family. And
it's in the book. It's, if you want, you know, and Ken put the link to Honor in the Air. You've got a documentary about him, and what the tale that Pam is talking about is in the book.
Honor in the Air, it was just chosen by Milwaukee PBS to be the feature film for their Veterans Day broadcast.
Oh,
So
congratulations. Well
yeah,
deserved.
we're just absolutely delighted. And on Veterans Day in Washington, D.C., there will be a special showing at the Army Navy War Memorial in Washington of Honor in the Air.
Oh.
And it's being hosted by General Chuck Yeager, by the Secretary of Defense Chuck Yeager, and some other generals and things. So.
And I really, I'm sorry, I lost my page, but you really emphasized the fact he was there for all the right reasons and the right beliefs, you know.
Yeah, I mean, he truly originally believed in what we were doing, and he felt like if we go out and say that we are the supporters and guardians of democracy around the world and say we're going to do something, well, then we ought to do it.
Right.
I mean, otherwise, don't say it at all.
Right. So congrats on the honor of the documentary for veterans.
Thank you very much.
Really
It was an extraordinary experience to interview all those men and to find the archival material that we did. And most of it is Scott's letters. He was a prolific writer.
Oh.
He also kept a journal, and I used to, when we found them, we kind of laughed because it was so eclectic. You know, he'd have a quote from a book he was reading, or he'd have a verse from his favorite lullaby that mom used to sing. And I mean, one of them was "Sweetest little fellow everybody knows, don't know what to call him, but he's mighty like a rose." So he'd have that written on one page.
Well,
And
isn't
then
that what literature does, though? I think I always call it exercise for your brain. Like reading is exercise for your brain, and you
and
know how it
thinking,
works.
yeah, and thinking about the things that you have read or the things that you have heard. And Scott spent most of his career in the 68th Assault Helicopter Company. And we to this day, I don't know whether it was, coincidence or just fate, because he also wrote down his favorite Bible verse, which is that one from Isaiah 6:8, which is, "And then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send? Who will go for us? Then spake I, saying, here am I, Lord, send me." And when I first read that in his journal, I thought, God dang, that must be what every single hero in the whole world says.
Yeah.
Here am I, send me, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And it really was just so, I can't even hardly think about it without wanting to cry. I miss it.
I know. I read it and I teared up when I read that section about your brother. But I do want to ask you another question. You've got and this is for everyone. You have a chapter, Secrets to Sleeping, which was absolutely mesmerizing to me because we all toss and turn, right? We have things in our mind or whatever it is. But your father gave you a secret to sleeping. What is that? Yes.
My dad came into the bedroom where there were 4 quarrelsome siblings, lying in the 90-degree heat in air conditioned bunk beds in a stifling little house, and listened as we all gave him our version of why somebody wasn't letting us get to sleep. And you have to understand that Dad was a kind of a terse, very reserved minister, and very, very erudite. And he would always lead you through the Socratic method to solve your problems. And he said, all right, I'm going to tell you a secret. I'm going to tell you how to get to sleep. And he said, at the back of your head, right at the base of your neck, lives a little soft gray cloud. And all you have to do to sleep is move that cloud up and over your head. And when it comes down over your eyes, you will be asleep. And I thought, BS.
Worked for me.
Yeah, I thought that isn't going to work. But I kept trying it and trying it and trying it. And of course, it's nothing but psychological manipulation, I'm sure. But the thing is, it worked. Eventually, I could get that stupid gray cloud to come floating up over the top of my head and down across my eyes and go to sleep anywhere. I mean,
Great.
I'd go to sleep in professors' classes if I want. No, I'm teasing. But I mean, it really, that got me through a lifetime of crises and horrible meetings coming up tomorrow that you weren't quite prepared for, and speeches in front of 600 people, and you really didn't really know the script very well, or being in a play or whatever it was. That gray cloud, that soft little gray cloud, went with me everywhere, and it's with me to this day,
I
which is
believe.
quite extraordinary, you know?
Well, Lisa in the comments, Lisa Lickle said, I've tried it. It works great. And also the funny part is, which of your siblings remember that little gray cloud?
The only one was Scott. The only one of the ones in that bedroom. In fact, the other two don't even remember the incident. But
Really?
Scott told me that in Vietnam, he used it all the time. It was the only thing that could save him from
Yeah.
the horror that he was seeing every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So do you have, you said you have other books you're working on. Do you have advice for writers as far as perseverance and rejection? Because we all experience that as a writer.
well, if you want to talk rejection, the book you are holding in your hand actually had been accepted by another publisher. And then along came COVID.
Mhm.
And after 18 months of kind of, well, we're just going to wait and, and do it after COVID's over. And after 18 months, they finally came back and said, sorry, we're not going to be able to do it anymore.
Yeah.
We're really losing so much money that we may not exist after this is over. And so you do have to be able to tolerate that kind of disappointment and that kind of rejection. And I think even Lisa may have said no at first. And I think I kind of, well, and maybe, and with good reason. I mean, I've already had one book published by WWA, and you really kind of want to give everybody a chance. But finally, I kind of persisted with her, and she said yes. And I was just absolutely delighted that she did. But I have had stories rejected. I have had, one year you win the jade ring, the next year they go, you really should have worked on this a little more before submitting it, I mean,
Well, we've all been there, right? And
yeah,
she's saying, hey, wait a minute. It wasn't just me, it was it's a committee. So she
no, Lisa's been excellent to work with. So,
Right. Everybody loves Lisa. She's really a star. If you're submitting to Creative Wisconsin Magazine, she's the person behind that, and she just says follow the guidelines and submit to everybody. So we do have a chance. We have our podcast. We have the Wispresso Cafe. You could apply to be a guest. We have Creative Wisconsin Magazine. We've got contests. So there's many ways for you to
I
contribute.
just love Creative Wisconsin Magazine. You get to read such a diverse group of material every single time it comes out. And of course, you get to read the Jade Ring offerings and things like that too. And Lisa is so good with it, because what she will do is, if you send her a couple of things, she'll say, okay, I'll take this one, not that one. But then she'll say, but that third one you ought to do X, Y, Z with. It ought to go here, it ought to go there, or maybe jade ring or something. But she's very good in the sense that she deals with you on a very personal basis when you submit things to that magazine. I
Yes.
really enjoy that.
Yes. And she also wants to say two other things we have. If you have a book coming out, you can submit for a review. You just go look on the website and you can look under, submit for review. We also have an events calendar. So you can, submit, it says just click here, submit and post for your events calendar. And you also can add your good news to the Midwest Writers Room podcast. So at the end, even if you're not a guest on the podcast, just You write in, go to the Midwest Writers Room, section on the website and say, click here for your good news and send their good news, and Luella or Ken can read it on the air. So we have lots of opportunities for writers who might want to somehow participate, in in WWA. We also have the fall conference, which was.
Oh, it was terrific this year, wasn't it?
Yes, tell me, what
So
did you think? How did you like it?
I loved it. I think it was one of the better ones I've ever been to, and I've been to a lot of them, so it
Good.
was
Oh.
very, very good. We're gonna miss Christy though. Holy moly.
Yes, our dear Christy Wopat, this was her last year, so we're gathering information. We sent out a survey. Hopefully you've answered the survey. You should see it in your
Yep,
emails if you didn't.
sure did.
Yeah, and so let us know where you'd like to have it, what you liked about it, just give us feedback about that. Oh, thank you. Thank you. So Ken posted the calendar and the book review tabs there for you if you want those.
Good.
So Pamela, tell me a few more things. Inspire writers. Give them some takeaways as far as writing, how they can be inspired. What's your best advice?
Well, first of all, write about your own passions. I mean, if you just saw a photograph of somebody with a cat draped across their shoulder, if that's a person who really loves that particular cat or cats in general, or the idiosyncrasies exhibited by most cats. I have one who is called nothing but Big Black Cat because he won't respond to anything else. Um, so, I mean, if that's what you are passionate about, find something that will allow other people into your world, into your passion about it. I mean, when I was racing horses, which was probably one of the most exciting things I ever did in my life, holy moly, you can't believe what it's like to break a horse from the gates. I look back and I go, she had a really significant death wish, didn't she? But, I mean, you find the things that you are passionate about, and those are the things that you share with other people. And those are the things that will inspire you to be. You do a really extraordinary job of sharing that kind of cozy, humorous take on mysteries and things like that. I mean, and you obviously love the puzzles. You love figuring it out, and your characters show that they love figuring things out because they're you. And so take the things that you are passionate about. I don't care whether it's animals or other people or education or politics, God forbid. Uh, and share that with somebody, because that's the thing that you're going to be able to describe or immerse yourself in, and then create an immersive experience for your reader.
Yes, thank you for that. I thank you for the shout out. I appreciate that. But like most writers, I write funny stories and it's all born from trauma.
I told you my dad said we learn by suffering. He was right again, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And the nice thing about being in a group like Wisconsin Writers is that you suffer together. The rejection, the struggles, the messy middle of the stories, the marketing, we all struggle together in it.
Yeah, the chapter that needs to get cut because it just really doesn't belong there and it took so long to write.
Exactly. Like Stephen King says, kill your darlings, right? You love it, doesn't belong, you got to cut it out. So.
Yeah. But save it because it may belong somewhere else later on. Believe me.
Exactly.
So
exactly. Well, we've got 15 minutes. Does anyone have questions? I am happy to take, send them in, put them in the chat. Do you have any questions for Pamela? What would you like to know about writing, staying on track, dealing with rejection or sadness, grief, writing through grief? What can you, if you have anything to add, go right ahead. I do want to give a shout out to our wonderful dear Christy Wopat. She's got a new, Christy Wopat organized the conference for years and everybody loves her and she's funny and sweet and she was a former teacher. Well, she wrote a book. She's got one coming out in November called Overruled. So if you want to, check out that book, Valerie Beal is the person behind the marketing on it. And I think it's available on Amazon. You can do a pre-order, I believe, and she would love a rating. A 1-line or 2-line review if you would like to do that. Same thing for Tales of a Preacher's Brood. You can buy this where books are sold, and we delight in just that quick rating. It's just start with the emotion. This book made me feel this way, and I liked it because of X, Y, and Z. That's all you got to do, and just give a rating.
Let me interject here. As far as I know, I'm the only person who is offering a money back guarantee on the short stories in Tales of a Preacher's Brood and in Red Road Redemption. If you read either of those books and you don't think there are stories in there that are going to stay with you for the rest of your life, you just give me a call and I'll give you your money back. So far, I haven't had any takers either. So
you heard it here. I saw you said that at the conference too, at your book table. I saw
yeah,
that.
no kidding. I mean, but you know perfectly well that there are stories that stay with you. I mean, from maybe from your childhood. Does anybody else remember that one, To Build a Fire? You know, where the guy is up in the Arctic and you know, his dog sled team takes off and all he's got is a few matches and the idiot tries to start a fire underneath a pine tree, and of course the snow all comes down on top of him. But anyway, I mean, but stories like that, Jack London and Guy de Maupassant, and you know, the one about where she cuts off her hair, and he sells and he buys her comb, and she buying him a chain for this. You know, I mean, stories like that. You remember the most dangerous animal, right? The one about hunting human beings, where they, yeah. So there are stories in here that I think will stay with you in the same way if you read them. So
Right. You have people nodding. I saw Terry and Chris when you were talking, when you were reciting those stories. And Kathleen said the nicest thing. It was an honor being on a panel with Pamela at the Faith Forward conference last year. So, oh, and Lisa wanted to say Tom Malin tried 3 times and finally was accepted for his book with Fire Conditions with WWA. So
wonderful.
Yeah. So the message is to stick with it and keep trying. So
wonderful. Absolutely. Be persistent, because this is your life. And if you want something, you have to fight for it.
Right. Right. I always think, the book world is big enough for my story, my well-polished, edited, strong story. The world's big enough for it. So.
Right. Absolutely. But that's the other thing that we haven't touched on is revision. I mean, there's something you could spend a couple of hours on, because I revise stories sometimes for years. I'll go back and I will realize that one word does not convey exactly what I want it to say, or that phrase needs to go, or that sentence needs to be restructured. And you're always striving to make it easier for your reader to understand what was in your heart, in your head, and to understand what drove you and what drives the characters. So
exactly. So anybody have questions on revision? We all love it, right? We all think it's great. This story right here, if you can see it over my head, this red one, that's called The Valentine Lines, and it's coming out in the fall. It's Cupid becomes a matchmaker in a small town. It's a screwball comedy. That was my master's thesis, and it took me, well, it's been 15 years.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's
So,
amazing.
stick with it. Talk about revision. I mean,
oh, that is so cool.
Yeah. So if I finally I had to get the mysteries out first, and then I had to work on the other stuff. So
I love the premise too.
What a
great premise.
Thank you. If anybody wants it, send me an email and I'll send you the PDF or the EPUB. So, but yeah, I had to stick with it. And I had that one writer friend who she and I went to school together, and she kept telling me, she just kept saying, what about that Cupid book? What about that Cupid book? And I'd be on and over here talking about mysteries and whatever else. And she'd always come at me and she'd go, what about that Cupid book? And she was the most patient, wonderful writer friend you could have, because she never got fussy. She just always just plant that little seed, and then sure enough finished it. So
I know there is one story in Red Road Redemption that was based on an incident that occurred when my sons were like 7 and 9. I mean, and I wrote the story immediately thereafter. And unbeknownst to me, each of them had written their own version of that story. We never talked to one another about the event. And it wasn't until 35 years later that I pulled that thing out of a file and thought, this really needs to be, needs to be seen, and polished it up and submitted it and entered a contest with it. But And then to find out that my sons had written their own versions of it, what an interesting coincidence that was. And to read their interpretations of the event was just fascinating.
So there's a question from Kathleen. She said I love the money back marketing, and she says she's been doing signings and talks at bookstores, and the last one was interested in doing a theme panel. So what is your advice for finding places to do presentations or themes, similar to your book? What's your advice there for marketing?
Well, for one thing, every time I go someplace, I drop in at indie bookstores and start to talk. And the other one is libraries. I mean, you talk to the librarians about their book fests, about doing book readings at the libraries. Almost all of them are delighted to have somebody come in. So if you know that you're going to be in, I don't know, Monroe 2 weeks from now, call the library and say, hey, do you want to have somebody come in and do a book reading for your afternoon book club? And you would be absolutely amazed at how often you get an acceptance. And indie bookstores, there isn't one out there that I haven't received just the warmest welcome from.
Oh, nice. And there's another question from Jenna. How is it writing about family? Do you worry about what you write? Do you pass it through them first before?
No.
No.
Because truly, one of the things that Lisa and I had a bit of a discussion about was the fact that this is not a memoir in any true sense of that word. These are the stories that get told around the kitchen table, or, you're talking to somebody who's on a sick bed or something, and they are your recollection, not the truth necessarily. And stories like this get added to, they get details subtracted from them. They're the kind of stories where you're telling it over the kitchen table and somebody at the other corner says, that's not how it happened, and then you say, well, you weren't there. And then they say, well, so-and-so said that they did blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, these are not stories that have definitive dates and details and conversations. They are generally, every single one of them has a kernel of truth about the event that is under discussion, or that becomes the crisis, or whatever it is. But people in my family, God bless America, they better know they're being put in stories by this time, for crying out. I've been doing it for 35 years,
Shouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
They can read the book and find out.
Find out what they did that day.
Exactly. Well, it has been an absolute delight, Pamela. And I have to say, has anybody else had an interview in a horse barn? I mean, this is what makes Wisconsin special, right? The fact that we can interview somebody anywhere, and a barn is likely,
Well, this has been a wonderful experience, and I just enjoyed it so much.
Oh, thank you so much.
Good laughing with you.
Oh, absolutely. So take care, and you have a speech to give later today?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
Well, you have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon, and thank you for joining me here.
Thank you, everyone. I just have a couple little notes here, and a couple little notes. Again, I reminded you about the marketing class on the 4th. And also our next guest, I cannot wait to talk to her. Our next guest on Wispresso Cafe, Saturday, October 25th at 10 a.m. is with Kristen Lenz. I call her the Martha Stewart of the North Woods. If you don't know about her, you will. She's got a TV show. She contributes to the local magazines. She may even have her own magazine by now. I don't know. But she is Kristen Lenz. She's written a book, and it's perfect for November, the season of Thanksgiving. So I hope you can join us in November for that one. That's the 25th of October at 10 a.m. again. And please bring your questions and your wonderful energy, and we will see you again. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.